Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Kimber. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brainfish. Today we're doing a bit of an overview of our new product launch that you may have seen last week called Ballet. So just to give you a bit of quick context on what Brainfish is, if you don't know, Brainfish is a global AI native customer operations company. We started with AI support agents in 2022. We're now launching an agentic workflow orchestration platform for ops teams. Brainfish, our core customer support product, resolves about 80% of support volume for our customers across a range of different countries. Ballet, this new product that we're going to be talking about today, automates operational work across any system. So we're going to talk about what that looks like, and we're actually going to focus on a live demo today and do a live build together with everyone. So let's introduce Ballet. So one of the key issues that we've identified over the past 3 years of working in AI is that critical work is often really hard to automate at scale because of the unique composition of systems. What options you typically have is you have the option to use AI agents like Claude or Cursor to try and automate some of this work, and you can get started really quickly, but you have a limited ability to connect to internal systems. You also have very limited reporting. It can often be quite expensive and inefficient to build and maintain these types of products. And then on the other side, you have traditional workflow builders that require weeks, if not months, of manually building workflows and internal systems that don't really integrate with these types of tools unless you get engineers involved. These types of tools, generally the commonality is that they both have minimal reporting. You need to do your own separate reporting, and they're both quite expensive at high volume. What we're going to talk about with Ballet is this new product that allows us to automate complex business processes with guaranteed outcomes using AI. And there's two key components that are really important with Ballet. What it does is it brings the best of these two types of traditional approaches together. It brings the natural language creation that you get with a tool like Claude or Cursor, where you can chat with it, and you get the predictable agentic workflows that you want out of a old school style workflow builder. What Ballet is also really good at is because it's an AI coding agent as well. So it allows us to write coded specific integrations into different software tools. This is really important because what we have found over the past 3 years is that a lot of our customers have these proprietary systems that are homegrown and often fit for purpose, but don't integrate with much. And it's really challenging then to do any iterative work on those tools. And then from a integration perspective, it's very difficult to integrate it with something like a Salesforce because often your Salesforce instance is also completely custom compared to your underlying internal product. So what we're going to do with Ballet today is we're going to build a bit of a workflow. And the workflow we're going to build is an upgrade flow. It's going to go between Zendesk. It's going to go between Zendesk and Stripe. It's a customer support flow. And basically, if we were to do this manually, what I would have to do as a human agent is if I'm picking up the phone or I'm answering a Zendesk ticket, someone asks me to upgrade their product, I'd have to go through from Zendesk, look at our internal database, look at Stripe, and then upgrade that user, maybe even go back to them for more information to actually get that all resolved. And that whole process might take me 20, 30 minutes to do manually. But with Ballet, we're going to be able to automate it and get it running on autopilot in the background. We're going to start by kicking off in the builder. So this is the new Ballet product from Brainfish. What it is, like I said, is a workflow orchestration product. And so what we can do is we can chat with it. Some of you may have seen an experience like this before. And on the left-hand side, before we start chatting, you'll see we have access to our playbooks. And so we're going to build a playbook today for this use case. We also have the ability to build custom AI agents. We have the ability to implement skills. And so you can port over your Claude skills as well. You can also bring in tools, which are connectors to different systems. And you can connect entire products as well as bring in things like schedules so that you've got different workflows running on autopilot on a continuous basis. So to start with, like I said, we've actually got a Zendesk ticket we're going to test with open here as well. So you can see we've got this ticket here from Dan asking to upgrade to a Teams account from an individual account. And then we've also got our Stripe account. And so if we're going to Stripe, we've got a couple different products. We've got our team account, our individual account as well, all set up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start typing. So I'm going to actually start by describing what I'm trying to build. So I'm going to say, help me make an account upgrade workflow using Zendesk and Stripe so that when a user sends us a ticket via Zendesk, we can see what plan they have in Stripe and upgrade them. Okay, so this is our prompt. And if you've used Claude before, you'll be familiar with using a prompting style structure. What is different about Ballet is it is a much more sophisticated planner and builder in terms of how it's able to then actually execute this. So you'll see it'll start thinking, it'll start going through in multiple different stages to do research on what's required to execute this task. And you'll start to see that each of these thought blocks are on particular types of items that it's getting to. So the first piece that what the Ballet is going to do is it's going to look at all of the existing connectors we have and see if it needs to build anything custom. For the purpose of the demo today, considering we're on an accelerated time, we're not going to build a custom integration today, but we can do that as well. We're going to be using some connectors from Zendesk and Stripe just to make it a little bit faster. The first thing you'll see here is that Ballet is now going to clarify with us how we want this playbook to run. So how should it decide if the customer wants an upgrade and what triggers a run? So we can auto detect it and reply/tag it on a ticket, or we can manually run it with a ticket ID. For the purpose of today, I'm going to manually run it with a ticket ID, but in future, what we can actually do is have a separate playbook that routes all of our tickets into different buckets and automates them as well. So I'm going to run this with a ticket ID. Then we can do something to choose the current Stripe plan. How should the upgrade itself happen? Do we want to reply on the ticket to confirm, or do we want to upgrade immediately or with an internal note? I'm actually going to say leave it to the agent and just add an internal note, because I still want my team to actually approve my refunds, my upgrades for now. And so what we're also going to do is how we're going to map them out. So we're going to match them by the email, but we can also look at the customer ID, or if we have a proprietary way to map them, maybe you've got your admin dashboard that's mapping Stripe customer ID with email and a few other different things. This is how we connect the dots between those systems. So we'll do request to email. And then how is the upgraded plan determined? So next tier mapping, the ticket might specify the plan. So what we might do is that say the ticket's going to specify the plan. So we might say ticket might loosely specify the plan. We should find the relevant one. And so Ballet will keep clarifying with me, especially on some of the more complex things. It will clarify a lot more detail than if you were to use any other tool to make sure it really gets the specification right. It's like using a consultant to help you to build a really sophisticated integration. But where you have to spend weeks doing sessions with a consultant or someone else, it would be a much faster process. So the other thing we're doing is, in this case, we also want AI to actually read ticket text, identify the requested plan. And so it's going to ask us what model that AI agent should use. And because we're not doing much reasoning, but we are trying to really just interpret some loose information, it's going to recommend a balanced Claude model to do some of this interpretation. These models are entirely flexible. We have one of the cool things with the Ballet product is you can interchange models. You can bring your own, or you can use any frontier or open source models within the platform. And so we have a full AI gateway to choose the different models that you want to use. Multiple benefits to doing that. One of them is that there's different cost tiers with different AI models, but also the actual quality of the models from a benchmarking perspective can be quite different. So depending on the use case, you often need a different model. So what you can see is Ballet's actually built this plan for me. So before we started building anything, you can actually see we've now got this new plan of Zendesk to Stripe that we want to do a plan upgrade. It's going to show me the goals for it and walk me through everything that needs to happen. Then it's going to give me step by step what this workflow might look like. And it'll also tell me if we're going to create some AI agents. So it's going to generate an AI agent for this upgrade analyst. It's going to use an existing Zendesk integration we already have connected. And then it's going to build a new playbook as well. So doing a few different things there. So I'll press start building and it will start creating this playbook for me. What it's going to do is it's going to switch screen, and then we're going to start looking at the code that it'll generate. And I'll also show you some of the other things that it's doing along the way. So the first thing it's actually doing here is it's creating this AI agent. You can see here it's created this plan upgrade analyst. And so retrospectively, if we want to go and customize this, we can go into the agents tab and do that later. And we'll be able to customize the prompting, the model, all sorts of things like that ourselves if we want to do that. However, for today, it's going to do all of that for me. It's going to create this playbook that you can see here. So we're now in this new playbook, and we've got a sort of a blank slate where Ballet is now going to start generating the workflow that we want. And so you can see it's doing all this thinking on the left-hand side. So the cool thing about the product is that on the left-hand side, when we're chatting with it, it's giving you all of the rationale as to how it's figuring out what's going on. So it's just if you're working with someone that's explaining their process to you and you can follow along at every step how it's building. You can also type in and make adjustments if you want to. So if we suddenly decided, actually, I don't want to do this for upgrades, I really want to do it for refunds, we could easily do that and tell Ballet that's actually what we want to use this playbook for, and it will adjust it. So what it's also doing now is it's testing some of the connectors. You can see here on the left that it's testing that the integrations we have with Stripe are working properly. And then it's also going to start writing the code to start building it out. So once it's finished testing all the connectors work correctly, then it will write that out. The main thing it wants to make sure is that we're not going to have to go and make any adjustments to those existing connectors. Okay, so it's done that. You can see it's starting to write steps out. So it'll start building. It's built this fetch ticket step already, and it will start testing and evaluating every step as it builds it. What's really interesting about this compared to other workflow tools or other sort of products is that it does these evaluations on every single step. So that means that we are confident that the step will actually run as intended. It's actually going to perform the task it's supposed to. You can see it's testing a ticket get request. And in this case, it's actually got a not found result. So that's really important because it's able to validate that there are issues, and then it will go and self-fix. So I don't have to tell it to fix that. I can accelerate it by pressing Ask Ballet to fix. But in this case, it's actually going to look at that. You can see it's thinking on the left-hand side, and it's going to keep going and evaluating it and figuring it out. I think my interpretation of that is looking at that ticket ID. The ID doesn't exist. And so it's going to keep figuring it out until it builds it out the way that we want. So while it's doing that, I wanted to show you some of the code that it's writing. So this fetch ticket step that it's building out, it's doing a bunch of validation on the Zendesk ticket. And you can see that it's actually writing code in the background on this particular ticket. And so it will build out every single step as a coded experience. And you can see that it's actually identified what the key issue is in this case. So in this case, it's testing against the ticket that just doesn't exist in our Zendesk sandbox. So it's going to have to retest it with something smaller. So it's going to do it with ticket number 3 just to check it out. So what's really cool is I can actually control this whole Ballet experience. I can do it from Claude, or I can do it from Cursor. You can actually run this entire workflow builder out of different general frontier models, which means that you can tell Claude to build on Ballet, build this experience, and you could go get a coffee, come back, and it'll be done. In this experience, it's quite useful for me to be able to visualize it and see what it's writing. So you can see it's writing this lookup Stripe customer step, and you can actually see the coding agent, the cursor here, as it's writing out that code. And so it will build it out, and it's written out all of this piece for this Stripe step as well. It's going to fetch that ticket. It's going to look up the customer in Stripe, see if they exist, and then it's going to start building out some of the other pieces as well. But what you can also see on this left-hand side is it's evaluating every single step as it's going, which, like I said, it's just making sure that everything works properly. Now, if you're to do this with Claude, it can often get into a spiral, and it can be quite difficult for it to get itself out of that. Often you might need to get an engineer involved, especially when the integration is a lot more complicated. And then if you were to do this with a workflow solution, if the node doesn't work, it can take you hours to actually figure out what's going on and why there's an issue. In this case, Ballet is able to diagnose why the connection is not working properly, and it will keep fixing it, evaluating it until it gets it to work properly. That way, it's doing that pressure testing. And this works extremely well with internal systems as well, where there's not good documentation. So let's say we've got an internal admin platform. That admin platform might have a huge amount of complex logic. What Ballet can do is actually test when it's building each step, how that admin platform is supposed to work as well. So in this case, it's identifying some issues with the logic that it's written, and it's going through and evaluating what needs to change, and then writing additional code to fix up some of the different things that are coming through as well. So it will keep building it until it gets it completed. And at the end, I'm actually going to leave this one, and I'm going to show you one that's completed as a bit of an example as well. And we'll come back to this one in a moment. So this is another one I wanted to show you. This is a refund experience. So when we have tickets come through from Zendesk, often we want to be able to process refunds on tickets. So what you can see here is that this will actually automatically pull in any new Zendesk tickets. It does this through a Zendesk webhook. And then based on that, it will then classify the ticket, whether or not it's a refund. So the first thing is it's going to look up that ticket. It's got an AI agent that's then determining whether or not this is a refund. So in this particular case, it will decide if it's a refund request. You can see on the output here, once it's running this workflow. And so in this case, it's false, so it's not actually a refund. So Then we have multiple steps that are going through for this particular refund request. We have the ability to look it up if it is, and if it's not, we're actually just going to go straight to the end and not handle it. For the ones that we are handling, we'll go through, we can leave notes on the ticket, we can process the refunds. So it's a similar kind of style to the use case that we're building currently. But this is just to illustrate what it does end to end. And like I said, this is a full coded experience, so it's very powerful in terms of what it's able to do with off-the-shelf tooling, but also with your internal tools. What you can also see from the experience that I'm showing here as well is the fact that it's extremely fast in building. It just means that it's much quicker for me to build a range of different types of things. So rather than traditionally, you might spend 3 to 4 months trying to build one workflow. With Ballet, we can build an entire end-to-end workflow in 20, 30 minutes. And so that's going to really be what's powerful for us in terms of being able to iterate and build many different types of these experiences as well. Now, while we're waiting for this to keep going, I'm going to open the floor up for Q&A. I've seen a few questions come through in the chat, so I'm just going to have a quick look at that. So one of the questions I had was, how is this different to Claude and Cursor? So we touched on that a little bit, but Claude, if you were to do workflow building in Claude, one of the key issues is that while it's fast to start, you have a very limited ability to connect to your internal systems. So Claude can only connect to MCPs that your engineers build and maintain, and they're very scoped to whatever the engineers have decided to build. With Ballet, because we're writing code, we can do API calls, we can trigger a computer use experience, and we can actually work like an RPA tool. And so Ballet has this ability to work in a lot more variable ways to integrate with internal tooling, which makes it much more powerful than if you were to use just MCPs internally. The other challenge with Claude is that you don't get a consistent output. And if you're building a flow for one person to use, that's okay. But if you're trying to build an experience, like an agent assist experience for your entire support team, you need it to be consistent in the way that it works. It needs to have the same output, the same response, that same structure. And so it's really critical that you have this sort of repeatability of this experience. So to show you what I mean, this flow that I'm demoing here, this one around refunds, this is a structured workflow that will evaluate every time it runs. And you can see on the runs, we also classify them into completed or failed. And on every single run, you're able to look at specifically what's going on. So if we're classifying like a classification step, if we're doing a lookup, whether or not something is found. In this particular workflow, we've got all of this sort of stuff documented end to end. So it's very easy to have that auditability into how things were done and why they were made, why decisions were made the way that they were. One of the key challenges with using Claude or Cursor to do something like this is that you don't have any visibility into the decisions it makes, the way that it works end to end, especially not at scale. If I have a team member that's working with Claude, they don't have any visibility, and neither do I, into the decisions that are being made. So it's quite challenging to actually get that to work end to end in reality. The other key piece is cost. So from a cost perspective, just to show you this refund assistant, if I jump out of here into this playbook, you'll see we've got a list of different kinds of use cases. What you can actually see is the run cost for some of these workflows. So some of these workflows are extremely cheap to run. So like this refund one that's running, you can see it's a very sophisticated workflow. It's costing us about $0.01 to run it end to end. So it's extremely cost effective in terms of using this to do that sort of processing compared to if you were to do it with other types of platforms. And so that's one of the key differentiators between us and using something off the shelf or trying to build it yourself. If you're using Claude to execute on a run like this, it will likely cost you maybe even a few dollars to run that same kind of experience. And again, you're not going to get that consistency, that reliability that you get by doing it with something like Ballet. So that's how we're going through this at the moment. So to show you this, I'm going to just show you this refund piece end to end. So let me just bring that up for here. So we've got this refund flow that I've just shown you, and I'm just going to bring you up an end-to-end experience so you can see what it looks like as well. So this is what this experience would look like. So basically, someone like Ash reaches out and says, can you refund my most recent payment? And to wrap up, basically what would happen is Ash asks for this refund. Ballet will start a run to verify the customer in the customer's product database, and we'll go through in your proprietary admin dashboard, look at that customer and find their specific details. Then we can confirm the subscription exists in Salesforce and get that to work end to end. And so once we've then done that, then what we can then do is start to process the refund. So in this case, we can actually find the next payment that's been asked about. and then we can process the refund in Stripe and issue that refund. So this allows us to then give that customer that money back, do it on an automated basis. And this entire flow will then allow us to add a comment to the ticket that you can see in Zendesk. So this would be the end output that we'd look for, with also the ability to then respond to the customer. So if we want to automate these types of really complex issues end to end, we can. It depends on your appetite to do so. This is specifically obviously a customer support use case, but being able to do this type of multi-system work is really powerful. And so to give you context of this workflow run, so this is a fully completed one. If I was to do this manually, it would probably take me about 25 minutes to go through these systems, find the user, actually process the refund properly, then reply to them. This whole workflow ran end to end in 42 seconds. So it's a very fast experience that makes it very quick for customers to get the right help that they need, and it just makes it that much easier for them. The other thing is, like we said, so it's all chat-based. You chat with the product, it builds out the flow end to end, and then it runs it in the same way. So those are the main things that we wanted to show today for the webinar. I'll open up and see if we've got any other questions while we're still here. I think there's one or two others. Here we go. I can see we've got, is this secure and compliant? Yes. So we're SOC 2 Type 2, have been for 3 years. We get pen tested on this product as well. And from a security perspective, there's a lot of really interesting controls in Ballet. So just to jump in and show you a few of them. In the product, you have a really sophisticated AI gateway that's here that allows you to turn off and on certain models. You can use your own gated models as well when we're using AI. So you've got all the Anthropic models, Google models, OpenAI. From a security perspective, that's really helpful. But then also every playbook runs in its own sandbox, which means that they're all contained in their own instances. So I can run a refund workflow and it runs in its own instance by itself that can be scaled up and down as required. Whereas in a traditional tool, everything runs in the same instance, which means that you can have cross-pollination, you can have data going all over the place. It can be quite difficult to make it secure. And the benefit with this product is that each of these playbooks runs in their own contained instance. It's very unique in that respect. And from a security perspective, all that data is being contained in each of those instances as well, all within the same cloud or in the US. Yes, it is secure. And I don't think we have any other questions that I can see? So those are the main ones I wanted to focus on. Thank you everybody for joining. I really appreciate your time and for jumping on today. It was a good quick overview of how the product works in terms of building a workflow and then delivering that end to end within a product like Zendesk or within Stripe. If you've got more questions or you're interested in seeing it live in a bit more detail, I'm happy to build a personalized demo for a particular use case you have in mind. We have customers using Ballet not just for support flows, but also for identifying revenue opportunities, helping with automating some sales to service handoffs as well between pre-sale and post-sale. And so it's quite an interesting product in terms of what it's able to achieve, especially because you can integrate with those internal tools that a lot of companies have these days. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll wrap up the webinar there.